Hello, Heathens! I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. Welcome back, my witches! Here we are yet again, gathering around the cauldron to stir some shit up. That's right, it's another episode of Dun 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 Dun. But you already know, you've clicked on the thing. It's Spinning the Wheel podcast with me, your rebellious host, Megan Angus. Let's talk about, well, okay. First up, let me get the stuff out of the way, and then let's get into the stuff. Okay. First off, thank you so much for joining me yet again. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're here. You know what I'm saying? Okay. If you are a mega fan of this podcast, please share it, please like it, please subscribe, please follow, please leave a rating, please leave a review. It really helps the algorithms. It's like some of the coolest ways that you can support. Share it with friends and family, share it on your social media feeds. Thank you very much. If you would like to support this podcast and the work that I do in the world, you can always send me a tip. I'm always down for that. But also, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1. It gets you cool stuff like discount codes for readings and other stuff that I occasionally sell from time to time, like workshops. It gets you free access to our monthly tarot circle or whatever the monthly offering is for patrons. At the higher levels, when you subscribe at $9 and higher, you get access to the workbooks that I refer to throughout the year that are for the various Sabbats, the witches or pagan holidays that we talk about all year long. That includes the calendar, spells, recipes, folklore, mythology, astrology, astronomy, a ridiculous pile of stuff, honestly, if I'm going to be very straightforward. And folks that subscribe at the Sun level, which is $23 a month and higher, you guys get readings twice a year with me to kind of dial in the wheel and how that stuff sits in your life. And folks that subscribe at the Jupiter level, the Saturn level, or the Pluto level get a half hour, actually it's 40 minutes or 70 minutes or 2 hours with me monthly. And we can talk about all kinds of stuff during that time period. We can look at your astrology, your monthly transits. We can pull tarot. We can discuss philosophy and magic. That's some of my favorite work to do is with my monthly peoples. I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting this work. And it's really exciting to return that support to you in our monthly get-togethers. So that's the ways that you can support this podcast. Very huge, mega ridiculous thank yous to all the folks who participate in that stuff. I am offering year ahead astrology readings for folks. I'm only going to coop those up for another week, I think, on my website, and then I'm going to pull them. And they will be again offered a year from now. So get on that while you can. And I should also say a limited element here is you guys have been going bonkers with subscribing to my Patreon. It's a little unsettling. It's really exciting. It's also weird. So it's all of those things. I'm a little freaked out. So thanks for freaking me out. And the slots, the higher slots for getting the monthly readings with me, when you subscribe to those, your readings are cheaper than if you were to just buy standalone readings through my website. And then you also get all of the other material that I'm sharing through Patreon. but those are limited slots and they are filling up. So if you've been thinking about it, no pressure, but I'm just saying, it's, you know, there's only a few left. It's a finite offer. There's only so many hours in the month for me to be able to see people, and it's filling up. You guys are going for it. It's pretty exciting. Okay, so that's that stuff. Next thing that's happening is our Imbolc class. This is the Quickening. This is a 6-week guide to Imbolc, 6-ish weeks. That is going to be January 25th. This will be a live stream on my YouTube channel, Megan Angus on YouTube. You'll also be able to see it eventually on my website. But if you would like to join us for the live stream, and we would love to have you, please avail yourself. Wednesday, January 25th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day, as we like to say here on the podcast, for everybody else around the planet. Okay, what else do I have to say? Oh, I talked last week about some changes that are going to be happening. I don't have any further information on that, but they are happening. And one of the places where we might notice that is, normally I would be quote unquote restarting the wheel now for Lunar New Year slash Imbolc season. But we're kind of letting it draw out a bit, and we will be quote unquote restarting the wheel at spring equinox this year. We're shaking it up, kids. We're shifting some stuff. And part of that, well, man, like, am I going to get into that? Probably at some point. Part of that is because we have a very interesting thing happening in our astrology this year, which brings up some of the oddities of trying to line up calendar on top of calendar on top of calendar, past, present, and, surely future. And months are duplicated in some calendars and months are skipped in other calendars because of this interesting thing. And it's interesting, but it's also normal. It's a part of the cycle because the lunar rhythms do not exactly match up to solar rhythms. And these adjustments were things that ancient civilizations had to do too. So in my adjusting, I'm sort of mimicking, I'm mirroring the fact that these two cycles do not match up, and we've known that for a very long time. And so this is my adjustment period. This is my intercalary month that I'm throwing in to realign the loony and the solar stuff. Okay. But things will jive soon enough. Trust and believe. It's going to be cute. I mean, it's always cute, right? Okay. That's all that I want to say about that stuff. You can subscribe to my newsletter for more information. You can subscribe to my Patreon for more information. You can just check out my website for more information. I'm out there, people. I'm on the interwebs. Get some. Okay. Before we get into, well, no, now we're going to get into the stuff. Let's get into it. First off, I want to send, and I hope that you join me in this, some love and some healing and some peace to the folks in Monterey Park, LA, California, USA, who were the victims of yet another mass shooting here in the United States. This was a Lunar New Year festival party that was happening, and someone came in and brought violence. And so definitely sending love and healing to those folks. Such a terrible energy to bring at such a celebratory time. But stepping back from that a little bit, I want us to think about the fact that this is the new moon. This is our new moon in Aquarius, and that is our international marker for Lunar New Year or Asian New Year, celebrated by billions of people around the planet. But Aquarius is about revolution. It's about rebellion. It is about shaking up the status quo, questioning tradition, questioning the boundaries and the constrictions and the conservative version of reality that has been handed to us by the past. And on this lunar new year, on this new moon in Aquarius, I'm looking around the planet and there are rebellions and uprisings and protests happening everywhere. Currently, according to the website carnegieendowment.org/ the Endowment for International Peace, um, there are over 400 significant anti-government protests around the world right now, happening right now. Some are very tiny, some are huge, some are in the middle, some have just gotten started, some of them have been rolling for years. But they all are made up of the people, right? They all are made up of the populace looking at their governments and going, nah, you guys have it wrong, and we are tired of doing it the way that you want us to do it. We're seeing this in Iran, right? This has been happening for months with not only women, but people of all genders standing up to the very conservative versions of their government and saying, no more. We're not following these restrictions that you have for women and femmes, non-binary people, queer people. We're not doing this anymore. In Brazil, there are huge protests. In Peru, there is a U.S.-backed coup happening right now, where there's this huge overthrow, or this attempt at overthrowing what's happening in Brazil. It's about massive rainforest fires that are being set, and people are fighting against this. The indigenous groups down there are fighting against this. In France, there are riots where they tried to push back the age of retirement by 2 years, and the people of France, they're not having it. In Germany, we're seeing massive protests where this coal mine is basically taking a village. They're just gonna mine the land around the village, just plowing through it, and the citizens of Germany are saying, no, we're not having it. Here in the United States, we have in Atlantic City the forest defenders who are trying to defend the last massive, forest of old growth trees left in the city, because the city wants to raise this forest and build Cop City. Right? That's something that we need, right? And it's literally that they want to build a fake city for cops to go train in urban protests. So, literally learning how to quell this stuff that we're talking about right now, and on and on and on. These are just a few, right? And I'm not saying this to bum you out. I'm saying this to say that we are in a time period of humanity itself saying we are throwing off the chains of the past, and we are letting go of the constrictions and the boundaries that the past has implemented upon us, laid upon us. Where are you in this? I'm just going to get right to it. Where are you in this conversation? And before you move really far into that, I'm going to guess that some of you probably are thinking, well, I donate monthly to this group, or, I've got a sign in my front yard, right? That stuff. And cool. That's cool. That means that you're aware that something's wrong, and you are putting energy into the universe in hopes that that energy will address those wrongs. That's good. But in this day and age, my friends, that is not enough. My heathens, my witches, my pagans, that's not enough. And here particularly is why it is not enough. Because many of those groups, those charities that are out there in the world, that are sort of the front line. They're like the easiest place to find. They're the first thing that you look, see in the Google search when you're like charity. Who should I be supporting? Who's out there doing the good work? Those groups have been co-opted by the establishment. And I saw this really great clip of a video with an interview with a person named Anand Giridharadas. He is an author. He's a journalist. This clip came from Democracy Now!, which you should be watching. If you're not, also, take it with a grain of salt. It can be a tough watch, but it's a good check-in because they're telling you stuff none of the other media sources are going to tell you. And he talks about this. He wrote a book called Winners Take All, and this book specifically addresses this issue that a lot of these groups have been co-opted by the establishment, the elite, the 1%, whatever our vocabulary is around this. And they are going to push the agendas within those charitable groups that keep the people in power and keep the people out of power away from power. They are going to push the agendas that serve them, not the agendas that actually are rebellious or revolutionary or that will serve the people. And so, again, I'm not telling you this to bum you out. I'm not telling you this to frustrate you. I'm telling you this to kind of jostle you and wake you up a little bit and light a fire under you. If you donate to a charity every month, awesome. That means you care. That means you give a shit. And that's fantastic. That's where we start. If you, check on your homeless neighbor outside on a regular basis and make sure that they've got some food or a $20 bill in their pocket or whatever it is that you're doing, right? It doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can be energy. It can be prayers. It can take the form of all kinds of stuff. But the moment that you take that energy, whatever it is, and hand it over to another group and hope that they're going to do the right thing with it, is the moment that you begin to potentially lose the track. Potentially, that group does not actually have your best interest in mind. Potentially, that group does not actually have the best interest in mind of the people that they claim to represent. And this is truer the bigger the nonprofit or the bigger the charity. And I realize that sounds pretty jaded, but it's the truth, unfortunately, because the bigger it is, the more that it looks like a corporation and the more connected it becomes to government agencies. And the more those people get to come in and press their agendas. I know, here's leftist rant, right? Like we're just kicking it off, right? Hello, New Moon in Aquarius. Yeah, we're kicking it off with a revolutionary leftist rant. Adoy. Of course we are. So I want to bring it back again to say, I am not telling you this to bum you out. I'm not telling you this to frustrate you. I'm not telling you this to stop you. I'm saying you care, and that's perfect. You give a shit, and that's where it starts. Allow this moment to be a recalibration moment. Have you been donating to a particular group? Maybe now would be a really good time to go check who's on their board of directors. Who do they answer to? And if you feel good about the things that you find in your research, keep supporting that group. But if you find some stuff that feels a little hinky, maybe look for another group, somebody that's local to your town or city or your state, somebody that's a little more grassroots, somebody that feels a little bit more radical. That's it, right? I don't know if you donate to charity, and I realize that a lot of us financially cannot. This is not a critique on that part of the conversation at all. Because again, we can donate, quote unquote, all kinds of stuff, time, prayers, attention, lip service, right? Like even just somebody talking about something at work or talking about something with their friends is a means of supporting these groups. And I certainly do not mean to say that all nonprofits or all charities have been infiltrated by the elite. That's not the truth at all, but a lot of them have. Some of them have. And so take this as a moment to just do a little bit of homework. Make sure that the groups that you're supporting actually support you. or actually support the people that you hope are being supported. And if they don't, dial it back. Find somebody smaller, find somebody weirder, find somebody that's a little more progressive. This is a great time to do that magically, astrologically, all that stuff. And it's just necessary that we recalibrate from time to time and make sure that we've got our shit together. I am recording this on Sunday, January 22nd. I am going to talk about the 21st a little bit. But today, we have Uranus, the modern ruling planet of Aquarius, stationing direct. So yeah, this planet has been in retrograde for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And it's stationing direct today. Killer time. Fantastic time to recalibrate. Pull the car over, check the GPS, make sure that we are heading in the direction that we mean to be heading in. And stuff is probably going to get weirder and stranger before it ever isn't. I don't know. I mean, I'm also kind of like, hooray, like let it get super weird. Let's go. I don't want it to get super scary though. And I only have so much control over that, right? But that's it. That's where I wanted to start this week. Again, I want to send love out to our folks in Monterey Park in LA. Just really, really not cool. And also sending power and love and solidarity to all of the folks who are rebelling around the world right now, who are engaged in the big human revolution, the farmers in India, and across the board, like all of the folks that are out there. We are in the midst, we are in the throes of birthing a better now. And anybody who's ever had a baby knows that shit's hard, it's painful, and it's messy. And it's not easy. It's not cut and dried. And that's what's up. Humanity is in the midst of birthing a better now, which is a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. Some parts of it are going to be hard. Some parts are going to be scary. But we got this because we've got each other. Okay. Let's get into the astrology of this week and the holy days of this week. And so let us get into this. This is Spinning the Wheel podcast, as we have said previously. Yule / Imbolc season, new moon in Aquarius, lunar week 49. So let's start off with talking about this new moon. This new moon in Aquarius is pretty spicy. We could say that it is pretty close to Pluto up there in the sky, who's hanging out at 28 degrees of Capricorn. We could say that it is kind of close to some other stuff, but I'm intrigued by the sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter is at 4 degrees of Aries. And so it's not exact. It's not an exact aspect there, but the Pluto aspect is waning. The Jupiter aspect is waxing. And just in general, just plain old astrology, moon sextile Jupiter is lovely. It's nice. Especially when we bring in all that Aquarius stuff. Now, we launched off in a pretty heavy direction, I realize. But let this sextile to Jupiter assist you and lift you and buoy you through that work. Jupiter is, our money. It's our expansiveness. It's our optimism. It's the ways that we reach out. It's our philanthropic elements. It represents our philosophical elements. It represents the parts of us that want to know more and be more and reach that far horizon of possibility and potential. So again, as heavy as it all started with my rant there. I really do mean this from a very hopeful and optimistic place. We need to get real about what the hell is going on in our worlds, but we can still have profound optimism about our potential for change within the murky stuff. In fact, we kind of have to. So allow this astrology to represent that shift in your process. Generally speaking, this is a really awesome opportunity to bring in abundance, um, bring in support from the outside, or connect your support to the collective at large. Um, and on a personal level, really kind of calling in new ideas, new opportunities around what we can do with this stuff, what we can do with our resources, what we can do with the resources of the collective, and in what ways can we pivot and shift and recalibrate and reorient to make sure, as I said before, that we are heading in the direction that we want to be headed in, and that we are supporting the groups with the progressive agendas that we feel serve us now, yes, but also our future, and the folks that are going to be living in that future. And in what ways does that stuff connect to your profession? In what ways does that stuff connect to your career? We can think about that stuff too. Um, and it's okay if there are no words or the words are jumbled. That's okay. It doesn't need to be super clear. This is expansive, it's philosophical, it's abstract. It's more almost about sending that wish out into the universe, asking for the sign, asking for the direction, asking for, a little bit of encouragement in one way or another. Um, when we are dealing with our new moon in Aquarius, what are we doing? We're calling ourselves out on old, long standing beliefs that were handed to us by the quote unquote fathers in our lives. And we're questioning that stuff. We're questioning tradition. That's what we do on the new moon in Aquarius. And I think that that's, as I said before, what we're seeing on a global level is humanity at large is questioning that stuff and saying, this is not working for us anymore, and we're gonna come up with a new way of doing things. And that's it. Like, there's not a lot to say about it. That's really straightforwardly what we're doing with the new moon in Aquarius, is we are calling out the patra in ourselves and the patra in our realities, and we're taking a deep look at the traditions and the histories and the constructs that have been handed to us, that we've been told this is just the way it is and it's supposed to be this way, and really questioning that stuff. That's our work on this new moon, in whatever way that settles out for you. For our lunar body work with this new moon in Aquarius, we are adorning or awakening or activating or stimulating or preparing for action the legs, especially the knees and the ankles. These are the parts of the body ruled by Aquarius. Don't just take my word for it, some lady on the internet yelling about things. Check in with your trusted healthcare provider and make sure that that work is safe and right for you. And as always, even if it is, work with the metaphor too. Where are you walking? Where are you stepping? You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Like, think about that. You think about, where are you striding towards? What are you walking towards? That is also appropriate work here. For our plant body work with our new moon in Aquarius, we are harvesting, we're doing pest control, disease control, plowing, and weeding to encourage above ground growth. Obviously, lots of plants are not doing their thing, but certainly plenty of plants are doing their thing here in the midst of winter, if you're here in the northern hemisphere with me. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's banging right now. The growth season is hopping right now. But again, even here in the winter, we've got stuff that are doing its thing. It's wild because maple trees are going to start coming into the conversation soon. It's crazy. Um, But also we've got all of our winter veg like kale and Brussels sprouts and root veg that are doing their thing. So, but even if you're just working with your houseplants, this could be a good time to just check them, make sure that everything is looking cute. Maybe poke the soil in the houseplants to aerate that soil a little bit, all of that good stuff. Okay, so now let's get on to the rest of the stuff that's happening this week because we have a lot of stuff that's happening this week. As I've been saying for a while now, we have a lot of holy days, but we kind of don't have a lot of holy days all at the same time because we are in the midst of these weeks long festivals still that are happening. For example, the Norse folk have Thorablot, which is a 2 or 3 week festival that welcomes in the heart of winter. We have the Carnival season that has kicked off with Epiphany, whether that was January 6th or January 12th. Carnival season, of course, rolls for a whole month before we get to, Fat Tuesday and Mardi Gras and all of that fun stuff, et cetera, et cetera. We have Lunar New Year, as I said, kicking off January 21st with our new moon in Aquarius at 1 degree of Aquarius. And that is a festival that, we think of as only a day, but no, this kicks off a whole 2 week festival that's going to culminate on the coming full moon. But really, kind of this whole month is sort of a party, depending on where you are in the world. It's a bigger party or a smaller party. So we've got all of that fun stuff going on. By the way, this is the year of the water rabbit or the black water rabbit. Not going to talk too much about the symbolism for that. Just know that that's what's going on. If you want to look it up, go check it out. It's really cool. Okay. Dialing it in. Our fixed star that we have for January 21st is the star Alberio, which is in the constellation the Swan. And I could find basically no information about this star other than it's a star in the constellation of the Swan. And I was like, okay, cool. Moving on, I guess. And this is something that happened throughout this week. We have a ton of fixed star heliacal risings this week, and there is almost no information about any of them. All the astrologers and astronomers are like, yep, it's a star. And I'm like, okay, where's the myth? Give me the vision. What's going on? What the hell? No. So we will move on to talking about this. Because it's a new moon, more or less, we also have a new Celtic tree month. And this is the month of Rowan. And our themes for Rowan, the tree, the wood, Rowan, are something that are going to thread throughout winter, but especially throughout Imbolc season, which is, of course, just around the corner. Imbolc technically kicks off February 1st, 2nd. So we are really just, about a week away-ish from Imbolc. So what are we doing with the Rowan tree? This tree was also referred to as the wizard tree or the tree of life by some Celtic and Druidic groups. It is connected to the goddess Brigid, and it's a hardy little bushy tree. And so this wood was often used to carve spindles and spinning wheels out of. And spindles and spinning wheels are a real thing. Obviously, they're a tool that craftspeople use, but also they are a metaphor for time and space, and the winding of time and destiny and all of this other stuff. We see the weird sisters and the fates and the Norns oftentimes, spinning wool into a thread, and the thread being measured out and then ultimately cut, and that is a representation of a single lifetime. It's certainly a metaphor and an image that I like to work with a lot during Imbolc season. I'm not going to give it all away. We're going to save some of it for class. But know that Rowan is very key to that stuff. It is a plant that is connected magically to the ideas of courage and protection and connection. Witches oftentimes will hang Rowan branches over doors for protection. The rowan that would be used magically throughout the year traditionally would all be harvested on May 13th. You wanted to harvest from a tree that was in good health. You wanted to harvest from a tree that you had never harvested from before and would never harvest from again. That's right. Every year, traditionally, you would go out and harvest from a new tree, and those trees had to be kept in good health. If that tree died after you harvested from it, all of the wood that you harvested from it not only wouldn't carry its magic, but possibly could be, cursed or turned or you know, uh, malevolent in some way. And there's a deep connection to the Fae with this tree. There's a deep connection to fairy with this tree. Um, so potentially there's some of that type of stuff. Other magic that witches will do with rowan tree and rowan bushes or divination, working with the dead, certainly something that we're doing all throughout winter. Personal power, healing, success. Um, Rowan is known to as a protection thing, but specifically to help aid in traveling. It's used in astral travel. It's used to clear the mind. It brings about philosophical meanderings and esoteric and existential quandary, as well as psychic powers. And in that idea of traveling astrally or physically, magicians and wizards oftentimes and witches would carve a walking stick out of rowan and use it to protect them while traveling, specifically to protect them from getting lost. And I love that metaphor of having something to aid you from getting lost in your philosophical wanderings and your spiritual wanderings. Um, in Norse mythology, the first woman is carved from rowan, and Thor was saved by a rowan tree as he was, almost lost rolling down a river at some point. In Greece, the goddess Hebe lost her chalice of youth, and an eagle returned it, and wherever that eagle dropped a feather or dropped a drop of blood, a rowan tree would spring up. And within all of that stuff, also dowsing rods and divining rods are also carved from this wood. That idea of the eagle is going to come up here again in just a second, which I thought was really cool. So that's rowan for us, and we're going to be working with that for a whole month. Rowan berries have little pentacles, little five pointed stars on the bottoms of them, and they are a bright, bright red, which really speaks to a lot of the fiery energy that also is summoned during Imbolc season. Yeah, cool stuff. The rowan tree. All right, moving on to Sunday the 22nd. That was all that I needed to say about the 21st, so I hope you got it. um, Sunday the 22nd, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Altair, which is in the constellation the Eagle. Ha! How cute! And, actually kind of predictable. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know now that it actually kind of always works like that. Yeah. Also, side note, how cute is it? The sun has moved into Aquarius. We have the new moon in Aquarius literally the very next day. And the first two heliacal stars that we meet are both in bird constellations. Check it out. Again, I'm sure it's just a coincidence for those of us playing along at home. Holy days for this day, we don't really have much, except because we've had a new moon, we now, in the classical era, would have new months. Month, yes. So for our Roman friends and ancestors, this would have been Calendae Februarius. And this kicks off the month of what we now know as February. And this is a month or a season of all kinds of purification. Again, not going to get too heavy into it because we're going to talk about it a lot in the upcoming Imbolc class. But we are kind of in a season of purification. And it really is about letting the old year go and getting ready to start the new year, agriculturally and in any other way that you would like to work with that metaphor. From our Greek friends and ancestors, we also have the kickoff of the month Gamelon or Gamelion. And this is a little confusing. This is one of our intercalary, excuse me, I'm not saying that exactly correctly. I'm also not pronouncing that word correctly. So, hi, welcome to the podcast where I mangle language from the last 5,000 years. Also my brand. Thank you. Uh, but the Greeks, as I was talking about before, the Greeks recognized that the lunar pattern and the solar pattern kind of fit together, but not really. Like they get out of sync with each other pretty quickly if we just follow one or the other one doesn't follow. And so the Greeks would throw in an extra month every now and then. And um, starting way back in November, we had the month of Poseidon, Poseidon 1 that ran through most of December. And to keep the rhythm, this is one of those years where an extra month gets thrown in. And so from the end of December through now, the end of January, we have had Poseidon number 2. Poseidon was usually the month that they would choose to double up. There were a few other months that sometimes they would pick instead. And so now, here at the end of January, we are stepping into the month of Gamelion. And not a whole lot about that other than a lot of the festivals in this month are going to be dedicated to Dionysus and sort of waking up the earth and getting it ready for all of the stuff that's going to happen throughout the rest of the year. Again, we will talk about a lot of that stuff in the upcoming class. Monday the 23rd, we have kicking off for several many weeks our friends and ancestors in France and modern friends and ancestors in France. Their version of Carnival is going ham. They are going for it. Not a lot to say about that. But it's one of the many carnivals that are happening around the planet at this time of year. Not the only time of year that carnivals are held. There are a lot of Caribbean groups that hold Carnival in the heart of summer. And they have their own political and spiritual reasons for doing that. But Carnival, this multi-week festival of, sort of living it up and getting into the good life, and then dun, 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 purifying from all of the sinning, is something that a lot of these groups partake in, whether it's now or at some point later in the year. Also happening on this day for our pagan friends and ancestors, we have the Feasts of Hathor. This is not specifically an ancient Egyptian holiday. This is something that's recognized by modern pagans. Hathor, one of the great mother goddesses of the Egyptians, often depicted with a cow's head with the sun rising between her horns. No big deal, just literally birthing the entire sun. I've got it, thanks, she said. Uh, and, will that dial into some stuff later in this week? Of course it will. Of course it will. Have you not been paying attention? You know that it's going to. Okay. Tuesday the 24th. I know I'm kind of racing through the day or racing through the week, but that's what I'm saying. Like we don't these holidays, like we sort of have a lot, but we don't have a lot all at the same time. And there's not much to say about him because we've already kind of said it a million times. It's winter, people, and this is what's going down. So this is just what it looks like. Furiously clicking in the background. So moving to Tuesday the 24th, we have our moon. I'll come back to that. But we have a moon thing happening on the 24th. I'm going to talk about the holy days instead. Okay. From our South American friends and ancestors, we have the Festival of Candelaria. Candelaria / Candlemas is another name for Imbolc. So you can see that we are already starting to step into this idea of candles and Candlemas and and all of that stuff. Again, we'll talk about it in class. That's the other reason why we're kind of racing through these, is because we're going to get to it in a bigger way. For our heliacal risings on January the 24th, we have the fixed star of Gidi and the fixed star of Debi. And these are both found in the constellation of Capricorn. Remember, we talked last week about sidereal astrology versus tropical or Western astrology. So, yes, the sun is technically, physically appearing in front of the constellation of Capricorn, even though those of us who practice Western astrology or tropical astrology would say that the sun has just entered the sign of Aquarius. Nay, my friends, it has not. Technically, it has for our magical purposes, but physically, astronomically, no, it has not. Gidi is the right horn of Capricorn, and Debi is the left eye of Capricorn. And sometimes this star is referred to as the butcher, or the luckiness of the slaughterer, or the luckiest slaughterer. Kind of grim, but also a thing. And this is something that we talk about in a fashion a lot during Samhain season, that as we step into this portion of the year, those groups, those folks who have livestock, who have to deal with animals, get to and have to deal with animals. There is a lot of slaughtering that happens at this time of year if they are a culture that eats meat, simply because sometimes the grain that is grown in the high part of the year is just simply, there's just not enough to feed the humans and the animals. And so, some sacrifices have to be made. I don't know that this star is specifically speaking to that practice, but that's what came up for me. Okay, moving on to Wednesday the 25th. We have our Imbolc class. Don't forget. We have the feast of Amen Amentet. And this is also, her name is pronounced Imentet. This is from our ancient and not so modern, but our ancient Greek friends and ancestors. Her name meant or means she of the West, and she is a goddess in ancient Egyptian religion, representing the necropolises of the Western Nile, or west of the Nile. And this is coming from Wikipedia, Goddess Bless Wikipedia. She was the consort of Aken, a god who guided Ra through the parts of the underworld. So Ra, the sun god, being guided at night, aka the underworld. And she is mentioned in various passages of the Book of the Dead. She is really thought of as a goddess of the deceased, and so she sits very comfortably with a lot of the ancestor work and death work that we are doing during winter season. She lived in a tree looking out at the entrance of the Duat, or the Egyptian underworld, and her main job, other than being awesome, was to offer food and drink to folks who had just died, which would restore their spirits and give them enough energy to travel to the actual lands of the dead. She's super closely linked with Hathor, so it makes sense that we've just had a modern festival dedicated to Hathor a day before, or 2 days before. She's also connected to Isis, and some folks think that she might be like iterations of those goddesses, versus being just like a solidly independent deity in and of herself. She usually was depicted wearing the hieroglyph for West. And she often appeared in tombs, welcoming the deceased into the afterlife. And her title, She of the West, is not just a statement related to geography, but it's also related to her role in mythology, because as the sun sets in the west, it was accompanied by death. And that was really thought of as like, this is where the day dies. This is where the sun dies and goes through its underworld journey every night. So That's her hanging out. Pretty cool stuff. Okay. Um, our fixed stars for Wednesday the 25th are also from Capricorn. We have Oculus, which is the right eye of Capricorn, and then we have Bos or Bos, B-O-S. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And this star specifically means cow or ox. Hello. Again, connections to Hathor, one of the most potent deities in the Egyptian pantheon, symbolic mother of earthly representatives um, of the gods in the Egyptian world, and also uh, as much as she helped birth things into the world, she also helped the deceased transition into the afterlife. Often depicted as a cow or as a woman wearing a cow's head or having a cow's head, but she also could be depicted as a sycamore tree, interesting, a cobra, or a lioness. Read up about Hathor if you haven't. There's some homework for you because she is dope. She is a very cool, very, very cool goddess. Okay. Thursday the 26th, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have Cimentive. This was also known as the Ferie Cimentive. This is, and in the countryside, it was called Paganalia. Hey! Sorry. And this was a Roman festival of sowing, not Sewsow. So yes, what we remember a couple weeks ago, we had Plow Monday, Plow Sunday happening throughout a bunch of ancient and modern European groups. Um, it's kicking off already. The growing season literally is already kicking off in the ancient world and the modern world. Depending on how close you are to the equator, it is already beginning here at the end of January. It's already beginning to warm up enough that folks can get out of their houses and go back outside and start poking at the earth, poking at the dirt, and being like, hey, wake up. We're doing stuff. Let's go. um, this was a festival that were thought of as like free days for folks to just hang out and party, but also to kind of honor the goddess Ceres, to honor the goddess Tellus or Tellus Mater, who is a personification of the Mother Earth. And the initial half of the event was to honor Tellus. And then the festival, it kicks into overdrive and it begins to honor Ceres, who is going to become, a more important goddess as the months roll in. And this was literally like seed time, sementive. That's what we're saying. It was seed time. And Romans would pray for good crops. And again, they would kind of start to poke at the earth and kind of wake up that process and begin to begin the thing, the preamble to the cool shits. Okay, then moving on to Friday the 27th. This is the end of our lunar week. And we don't have any super hardcore holidays for this day. Just checking my notes. Oh yeah, that's right. We have like a boatload of saint days, and I'm not going to get into them. But just remember, like, you can look up January 27 saints and just it's lousy with saints. Um Always know that wherever there's a saint, there used to be a pagan god or goddess. Sorry, I'm saying it. I'm just putting it out there on the table, people. It's the truth. So think about the realms. There's a saint day in Monaco. There's a saint day in Georgia, the country, Georgia, not the state. There's a saint day in Serbia, and a lot of these are like the patron saints of the country. Not always, but oftentimes, and I think these are. Um, and they would have supplanted a goddess or a god that was already being worshipped there before the Catholics showed up. Yeah, I'm saying it. Fight me. Don't fight me. I don't even have pants on, so I'm really not equipped for a fight. All right. Those are our holy days for the week. As I said, I know we kind of raced through those. Some of these we're going to talk about in the upcoming Imbolc class, and some of these are just kind of like continuations or further iterations of stuff that's already happening. Um, Although I do feel like I forgot something. I know that I forgot something. I actually did forget something. Where is that day? No. We're not letting it slide. Okay. January 26th. Here we go. From our Chinese friends and ancestors, we have Zhaozhen, which is Kitchen God Day. That's right. I knew I was forgetting something. Okay. So the Chinese name of the god of the stove, literally like your stove, is Zhao Shen. He is in charge of the kitchen. And I love this connection because Brigid is also a hearth goddess, and we're about to step into Imbolc season, which is riddled with Brigid symbolism and veneration. It's almost like if we had to pick a goddess for Imbolc, it would be Brigid. Um, Now, in the mythology of China with Zhao Shen, this god's major duty was to like keep an eye on people and then report back to heaven on like who was acting right and who was not acting right. But this character, this god, is also a literal representation of the fires of the home, the heart or hearth of the home, and the heat and the love that's represented by that. And we will see lots of civilizations are going to start to focus on that idea as we move through February and through Imbolc season. I love it. It's so cool. Okay. Now we're going to roll back to the beginning of the week again and talk about the astrology of this week, and then we will get into our witchery. I don't know why that cracked me up so much, but it really did. We're going to talk about tarot. We're going to talk about witchcraft. If I can make it to the end of this podcast, it's going to be a miracle, I think. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. All right, winding space and time backwards and forwards again, because that's what we do here on the podcast. Let's roll it back to Saturday the 21st with our new moon. Again, I just want to reiterate that this new moon is sextile Jupiter. So it has the opportunity for the whole week, not just the day of the new moon. This is a really important new moon for lots of people around the planet. So its vibes kind of echo out quite a bit. It's expansive, it's exploratory, it's philosophical. Again, we're reaching for the far horizon, and also for folks who are learning about astrology and all of that good stuff. Um, when we're dealing with a sextile, which is a type of aspect between two planets, quote unquote, or celestial objects, um, sextiles, generally speaking, are benevolent. They are helpful aspects. They represent a point in our process where we can make some ground. We can make some progress. We can get ahead. We can get something done. We can acquire the thing that we needed, that sort of thing. The thing about sextiles is what they do is they point out where we need to do work to get that benefit or that boon, that gift, that advancement in our process. And then it's up to us to do the work. The planets aren't going to bring anything to our doorstep, generally speaking. Um, although I'm not saying you can't leave a winning lottery ticket, Jupiter, if you're out there. It's fine. I will totally take it. But I don't expect it. um, the sextiles, the job of the aspect of a sextile is to show us where we can do work, what kind of work we could do. And then it's up to us to do that work. Okay, that's all I've got for Saturday the 21st. So then moving into Sunday the 22nd, we have Mercury in Capricorn trine the North Node in Taurus at 9 degrees. And this is bringing us a little bit closer to whatever that thing is that comes to mind when we say the word destiny or fate or our bearing, our heading, our direction. And this whole week is about recalibrating in that focus, right? Like, where am I headed? What am I putting my energies towards? What deserves my energy? um and so this Mercury trine North Node is like, I want to talk about it with people. I want to acquire information. I want to pull in some data or exchange some ideas with some folks who are dialed into that same goal. Or maybe they're not, but they're dialed in. And that's inspiring. And I want to get a little closer to that and listen to what they have to say about their process. Also on this day, we have Venus in Aquarius conjunct Saturn at 24 degrees. Now, this can be a bummer transit because Saturn and Venus generally don't like to hang out with each other. So let's talk about the hard part first. This can bring like too much seriousness to our relationship stuff. This can bring some heaviness to our relationship stuff. If we've been living a fantasy with a lover, this might bring some sobriety. This might bring in some intrusive reality to that situation. That's the hard part. The workable part of Venus conjunct Saturn is, again, it brings a level of reality or realism to a situation that maybe hasn't been so grounded, or hasn't been really like actualized yet or manifested yet. Maybe we've been living in the fantasy, and today is the day to say something a little bit more serious to this person that we care about. Relationships that start on this day or start around this time tend to have a more somber vibe, but also a more realistic and grounded vibe. And also can indicate a relationship that's going to last for a really long time because it started out in such a grounded and realistic place. So, however that applies to you. The other thing I would say is, if you are in relationship with somebody, or you are this also actually applies to artists because Venus speaks to that process as well. Um, might be a little restrained in our Venusian expression on this day. So if you're trying to flirt with somebody or trying to get a loving message across, this might not be the super greatest day to like really get your intentions across. Slash, if you're a creative type, it might be a little difficult to find the muse on this particular day. And or you might just be much more serious and structured about how you go about that process. Okay. Also on this day, we have Uranus stationing direct at 14 degrees of Taurus. Uranus has been traveling through the sign of Taurus for several years, four and a half ish years. It's going to be here for another 4-ish years. So Uranus isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Folks that have planetary placements in fixed signs, right around the middle of the fixed signs, that would be Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, might have a little bit of extra trouble on this day, and or some event or piece of information might like fall out of the sky on you. Some shocking revelation may come through, and or we may see that on the global stage over the next couple weeks, that some shocking piece of information comes through. Again, Uranus, the great table flipper, the zodiacal table flipper, as I like to refer to this planet, is here to start shit. Literally, Uranus was discovered in the 1700s by modern civilization, we should say. A lot of folks think that ancient civilizations may have known about Uranus because it is actually visible in parts of its orbit at times. At times, it is absolutely not visible with the naked eye. For the most part, Saturn is the last planet that can be visible with the naked eye. But there are times, if you are a civilization that is like paying attention to the sky, and there were, a few of them, it is possible at times to see Uranus with the naked eye. So even ancient civilizations knew that there was something out there. But Saturn was thought of as the last planet for a very, very long time. Not just the last planet, though, literally the edge of the known universe. Like, there was nothing after Saturn. That was it. That's the edge. That's the end. Saturn is the word, or the name Saturn is connected to the Egyptian god Set, where we get the word set, as in like where the sun sets, the sunset. Yes, literally. Remember, we already talked about that today. The West, being the edge of life, and that's where the sun sets. It's going into the underworld and the lands of the dead. So Saturn represented the boundary, or the edge, or the constriction of life and reality and all of the known universe. And then, after who knows how many millennia of Saturn ruling at this place of like, I'm the be all end all, here comes Uranus, the upstart. Uranus blew open humanity's understanding of just how big the universe actually is. We existed in a bubble of ignorance, in a sense, for who knows how many thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, not knowing that there was something beyond Saturn. And since the discovery of Uranus, hey, wow, right? Like, like we have learned to see out into the universe at an incredible rate and an incredible distance, and realizing that it's so far out that we can't talk about it in a literal physical distance. We have to talk about it in time, right? Like, how many years away is that? How many millions or billions of years away is that thing? So Uranus blew open our understanding. So anytime that Uranus is doing stuff in the sky, it's making an aspect to something in your chart, or it's stationing retrograde or stationing direct, that's the kind of process that it's speaking to, is a process where your mind might get blown open, where you might be suddenly shocked into a deeper and more profound, but altogether larger understanding of whatever the subject matter is. Okay, that's enough on Uranus. Moving on to April 20, or excuse me, why can I not get it dialed in that this is January? What is wrong with me? It's January. It's January. It's freaking January. Okay, Monday the 23rd, nothing special is happening. The moon moves into Pisces. Lovely. Tuesday the 24th at 5:42 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet, we have our waxing crescent at 19 degrees of Pisces. And the waxing crescent in Pisces, let me check my notes. I just looked at this. Oh, right, duh. It's all about the fantasy. Um, Now, on this same day, we have the sun in Aquarius sextile Jupiter in Aries at 4 degrees. And that is absolutely stirring up that optimism, that expansive mindset, the hope, the upward trajectory. And figuring out how we are going to forge our unique path through the world. That's a lot of what we would want to be thinking about with this Sun sextile Jupiter. And so then, complementing that, we have this waxing crescent moon in Pisces that is really encouraging us to daydream. So, in whatever way is possible for you on this day, this is another really great time. We've just had a new moon, and also a new moon in Aquarius. Um, and also we're at the start of the year, and also, this is still continuing another great day to be thinking about your blueprint for the year, thinking about your trajectory for the next several months, for the rest of this year, for the next couple of years, and I really encourage writing down a list of stuff that's just kind of bonkers. Just like write down every damn cool thing you could possibly think of that you want to get up to. Why not? Are you going to get up to all of it? I don't know. I mean, probably not, right? We're probably not going to get to all of it. That's part of the work that we do in spring, is picking the stuff that's actually going to get our attention. And then as we move into summer, the stuff that's really going to get our attention, right? So we're not going to get it all done. But as I've said several times in the last couple of months, you miss every shot you don't take. And you lose out on every chance you don't take. And so I think of these lists as, let me just let the gods and goddesses know. Let me let my higher self know, my subconscious, whatever our vocabulary is there, my ancestors, my guides. Let me let them know all of the wacky stuff that I'm dreaming about, all of the stuff that I've got hopes for, all of the things that I'm trying to manifest, that I'm excited about, that I'm interested in. Let me let them know about all of that stuff. Will I get to do all of those things in this solar cycle? No, probably not. We'll pick the ones that work, we'll pick the ones that are important. We'll pick the ones that are feasible. Sure, yes. But the bigger that collection of potential is, who knows what we can do with that, right? The bigger and broader our goals can be. So a really great day for doing that kind of stuff. Thinking about your unique path that you are creating and moving through in this world, how that's linking up to the collective, all of that stuff too, yes. But again, optimism, hope, how big can it get? Let me just write down my crazy dream list, my wacky dream list of all of the incredible stuff I'd like to get up to. And it's okay that it's not going to all happen. It can't, and it shouldn't, right? Um, it's okay that it doesn't all happen, but let me make that list as big as possible. Okay. Moving on to Wednesday, the 25th, we have the moon moving into Aries. Thursday, the 26th, we have Venus moving into Pisces. Now, does Venus like being in Pisces? It's exalted in Pisces. So you're goddamn skippy. Yes, it's very excited to be in Pisces. Venus is dreamy and opulent and lovely. It's artistic. It wants beauty at all times. It wants to be drowning in the senses. It wants. And it's just an absolutely lovely day. Uh, there's a quote that I found in the book Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Caldera. Talk about it a lot on this podcast, so where I get a lot of the information about the astrology of the lunar phases. And this is a quote that syncs up with our crescent moon in Pisces, but now we also have Venus in Pisces, the great artist, the great lover, Venus. Um, and so I think it's still completely applicable. And it's from Howard Ikimoto, and this is the quote. When my daughter was about 7 years old, She asked me one day what I did at work. I told her I worked at a college and that my job was to teach people how to draw. And she stared at me, incredulous, and said, "You mean they forget?" Boom. Boom, bitch. Come on. What? Out of the mouths of babes. Get out of here. Get out of here, kid. Um, that's what's up with this waxing crescent in Pisces and then Venus scooching into Pisces where they are exalted. Um, can you come back to your inner artist? Now, think about the work that we were doing a while back when we were in Capricorn season, where I was encouraging you to think about the similarities between God or source or goddess or deity or whatever our vocabulary is there and the artist, right? And now it is our turn to be the artists. And in what ways are we stepping into that manifester role, that creator role, that progenitrix role? Are we birthing the thing right now? No, we are donning the apron. We're picking up the paint palette. We're picking up the brushes of our lives. And we are looking at a blank canvas in front of us. And we are getting ready to begin to start to do the thing. That's what's up. So Venus moving through Pisces in whatever ways are safe for you. Engage in art over the next 3 weeks to a month. Uh, if you can, go to a gallery, obviously mask up, keep yourself safe, go see art shows. Right after Venus enters Pisces, we here in Seattle are going to have our first Thursday art walk. We're going to have our, Capitol Hill Art Walk at Pioneer Square, or excuse me, Georgetown Art Attack. But I'm sure that there is also an art walk in your city, or maybe someone could start one. You might dig out your art supplies or wake up your palettes, wake up your sketchbooks. If it is coloring books with colored pencils, have at it. It doesn't have to be fancy, but the idea is this is an excellent time to really begin to engage the artistic side of yourself as a means of truly also engaging those other way more serious conversations that we're having in this week around where am I going? Where's my energy going? What am I supporting? What am I hoping to manifest in the future? What are we hoping to manifest in the future? It starts with crayons, people. It starts with crayons. Check it out. Yeah. I'm like, is there anything else I want to say about that? No. I will say this. Venus in Pisces and the other Piscean energy earlier in the week on Tuesday, Pisces in general, when we're dealing with the sign of Pisces or we're dealing with transits from the planet Neptune or even to Neptune, we can really forget our bodies and we can forget being rational. It's just like, whoop, nope, out of the boat. Like, forget about it. We're not dealing with it. So we don't want to run off after every single fantasy, right? And like fully invest the entire farm in every single fantasy. No, that's not realistic. So, check yourself, like have some fantasy, but don't lose yourself in that. Or if you do lose yourself in safe ways. But the other thing I will say before I move on is, remember to check back in with your body. Drink some water. It's easy to forget to eat on days where there's heavy Pisces or heavy Neptune stuff going on. So Pisces moon earlier in the week, the Venus entering Pisces, just check in with your snacking, check in with your making sure that you're taking care of the physical body. That's all. Okay. Moving on to Friday the 27th, the end of our lunar week. We have Mercury in Capricorn square Chiron in Aries at 12 degrees. Not the funnest of transits necessarily. Chiron, of course, is our sacred wound. It is a planetoid that speaks to the pain that we experience in this lifetime and painful experiences that we have had. And Mercury is our planet of thinking and logic and communications. And so This could be a day where you receive some painful info. Maybe somebody says something to you that hurts to hear, or they say something that brings up that stuff for you. Um, we might be also on the receiving end, or I think I just said that. Sorry. We might be on the receiving end of hearing some painful stuff. We might be on the giving end of saying something to someone that is painful or brings up something painful for them. Squares are difficult, right? There's friction in the square, but the point of the square is, again, to work, and to adjust. So, it's kind of one of those like, well, you could have said that a lot better, but okay, now I know that there's an issue here, and now I can choose to work on it if I want to. So that kind of a funky ending to a week that's otherwise relatively dreamy. But it gets chill next week. It chills out again next week. So if and I will also say this: Mercury transits are very fast. They take a day at the most. So even if there is some bummer vibes there, they're not going to last forever. And then later in the day, the moon moves into Taurus, where it is also exalted. The moon is very powerful in Taurus. It's not as powerful as it is when it's in the sign of Cancer, but it is fancy in the sign of Taurus all the same. So we will have the moon in Taurus, and we will have Venus in Pisces. That's a nice little combination there. Ultimately, I think it's a week of really dialing in on what are we trying to get done in this lifetime. And this week in particular is way more about being dreamy and hopeful and optimistic and wild, um, bonkers and wacky and very fantasy based in our plans for the future. We will sober up and we will get more strict with our stuff. We'll get more realistic and more grounded as we move further into the month and into next month. But right now, we have a lot of assistance in the sky that's like, nah, dream bigger, bigger than that, bigger than that. You have your homework, witches. Figure it out. All right. For our tarot this week, I you could work with a lot of different stuff, and we are going to talk about these cards more in the upcoming Imbolc class. I know, say it with me, right? But before we get to the class, um, I do recommend working with the star card this week. And every time we get into the new sign and I'm thinking about the major arcana and the minor arcana, like where do I want to parse them out? We have the sun moving into Aquarius, and then literally 24 hours later, more or less, the moon is new in Aquarius. And it's just too good of an opportunity to pass up working with the star card. You could also, if you want to, go ham and lay out the 5 and 6 and 7 of swords. Those are some of the minor arcana that we work with during Aquarius season. You could also pull out any or all of the court cards from the suit of swords and hang out with them. You could pull out the ace of swords as well because it's a new moon. So any of those cards I think are appropriate. Even if you wanted to, you could pull out the Fool. The Fool, by some systems, is connected to Uranus, and Uranus is stationing direct this week, the ruling planet of Aquarius. So it's Aquarius on Aquarius, right? Like we're going ham for Aquarius. As I said earlier, it's lousy with Aquarius this week. So any or all of these cards, if that feels overwhelming, you're like, I don't want to have 740 tarot cards on my altar. Don't. You know what? I do what works for you. Please, please. But I think that the star card out of all of those is something that's extremely helpful this week. One, because what's one of the things that we all have learned from a very early age as a way of interacting with stars? We wish upon them. And there are so many wishes and moments of that type of hope and that type of engagement with potential and possibility that are available to us this week. So why not, right? Why wouldn't we? Um, I'm looking at the Rider-Waite or Smith-Waite version of the star card right now, illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith 100 and some years ago. And, but go with the card of your choosing, go with the deck of your choosing. And in this card, we have a person who is naked and they are kneeling on the ground, but they are resting their other foot on the surface of the water. And they hold a jug in both hands, and one jug is pouring water back into the water, and one jug is pouring water onto the ground, which runs out in 5 different streams away from that jug. Behind them, there's a tree with a bird, and way, way, way off in the distance, there are some purple mountains and a mountain peak. And up in the sky, there is a bright yellow, big star with 8 points. And then surrounding that, there are 7 smaller stars in white with 8 points. And I often think of this card as the Dark Night of the Soul. And if folks have worked with me, they know I've talked about this for a long time. And if you haven't, first off, if you haven't read The Dark Night of the Soul, please do, by St. John of the Cross. It's a romp. It's pretty intense. And society, modern civilization is familiar with a take, an opinion about what that poem is about or what that thing is trying to express. And that it's very sorrowful, it's very dark, it's very like lost. And that's in there. But there's also this intense yearning that is found in that darkness. Maybe even produced by that darkness, or is only available within that darkness. And I think that is just such an incredibly profound metaphor for where we are as a species right now. We are in the dark. We are in some spooky shit. And a part of that experience of being in that spooky place is this incredibly holy yearning for the light, for union with the beloved, which is, the thing that we hope for, the ineffable goodness, right? The totality of the soul. And that thing looks different for every person, which is part of why I've emphasized going your own way and finding your unique version of this thing throughout this week's podcast, is because yes, there is something that is unanimous or universal. There is an element of that goodness that is yearned for by the species, by humanity at large. Yes, the collective, 100%. But we are each going to contribute to that, the birthing of that thing, in our own very unique way. And we do that by pursuing the things that we see as important, informed by what the collective needs and wants, but also informed by our personal unique take on what it is to be alive on Earth as a human now. And that yearning is a desire, right? And there comes Venus in Pisces. There comes, the great lover of the zodiac. And, to sort of guide us through the fantasy of like, well, what are we creating? What are we painting? What opulence, what beauty, what hope, what dreamy deliciousness are we going to produce this time around? And so the star card starts out with the existential crisis of, I'm lost. I don't know what's happening. Everything is shit. All of the things that I thought I could rely on, I can't rely on anymore, right? Our concept of self, our concept of what it is to be in this country or on this planet at this time, right? We were handed so many versions of reality. Coming back to that stuff that we were talking about earlier in the podcast again, we were handed so many things from past generations that we've been told it's just this way and it has to be this way and this is the way it's supposed to be. And that has arrived us at a pretty desolate location. And, and we have to take a moment in that and go, wow, this is fucked. Like, I'm not into this at all. And then the yearning gets an opportunity to arrive, and show itself. And that passion, that yearning is the adventure. That's the course that we get to go on. Where does it lead us? Where do we take it? This person they have a knee on the ground. So part of their experience is based in their lived experience, in the real world, in the physical things that they have had to endure. And part of their experience is based in their intuitive understanding of that stuff, right? Their other foot is on the water, on the surface of the water. So their balance is derived from appreciating both their emotional experience, their spiritual experience, their internal world experience, and their external world experience, and realizing that neither one is more important than the other, and I need both. The stars that are up in the sky represent the great schools of teaching. With the 7 stars, that's the 7 metals of alchemy. It's the 7 chakras that Hindus work with, the yogic teachings, and on and on and on. The 7 sacred metals, the 7 ancient planets, and all of their teachings, and those were the gods and goddesses, right? And yet there's that 8th star in the center that is, us, maybe our own soul, the totality or the collected, efforts and energies of all of these things added up together as the universe, or gods, goddess, source, whatever it is. And those jugs that are being poured, are that's us pouring our experiences back into the reality. It's us receiving the balance and also pouring our energies back out into the thing. Check out the card. It's a cool card. Some homework for you is to find out more about that bird that's in the background of the card. That's some homework for you. But yeah, this is card 17, the star. And I think that it has a lot to show us. The person is naked in a lot of illustrations of this card, and that is because they are coming to this process without artifice. They are coming to this process with, think of the myths that we talk about at Samhain and Yule season of Inanna and Ishtar going through their underworld journey, and they have to take off all of their vestments so that by the time they get down to the very bottom of the journey, they are completely stripped and naked, because they are their raw, true, authentic self. And that also is really emphasized in this card, and the work and the process that it talks about is that we come to this process as our raw or most authentic self. We're not lying to ourselves. We're not lying to anybody else. This is me, warts and all, stretch marks and everything else. And I'm perfect exactly in the way that I am. And every single one of us is a unique iteration of that thing. And we're perfect. We're absolutely perfect in that. That's our tarot for the week. Our magic for this week, if you choose to engage in any magic, I certainly would recommend, as I've said several times, making a wild ass list of shit that you would like to get up to in 2023 and perhaps beyond. This is the very end of our Yule season work. We are about to step into our Imbolc season work. And so doing any kind of divinatory work is very appropriate at this time, any kind of divination at all. Because Aquarius is an air sign, the new moon is also an Aquarius air sign. Doing divination with incense smoke, totally appropriate. Divination with clouds, totally appropriate. Divination with wind, totally appropriate. But something that we're going to get into in Imbolc season is that this is a season that is really appropriate for rites of passage or initiations or reaffirming or returning back to our spiritual practices. So if that is stuff that seems like maybe something that you're going to want to get into in this next, 6 to 8 weeks or so, you might start doing some homework now on what all that might look like for you. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that, because I'm going to leave the rest of it for the next class. Yeah. Okay. That's everything, my friends. That is everything. Very quickly, let's go back over the astrology of this week. There's not a whole lot. Saturday the 21st, 12:53 p.m., new moon in Aquarius at 1 degree. Sunday the 22nd, we have Mercury in Capricorn trine the North Node in Taurus at 9 degrees. We also have Venus in Aquarius conjunct Saturn at 24 degrees, and we have Uranus stationing direct at 14 degrees of Taurus. Monday the 23rd, we have the moon moving into Pisces. Tuesday the 24th, we have our waxing crescent moon at 19 degrees of Pisces. We also have the sun in Aquarius sextile Jupiter in Aries at 4 degrees. Wednesday the 25th, the moon moves into Aries. Thursday the 26th, we have Venus stepping into Pisces. And Friday the 27th, we have Mercury in Capricorn square Chiron in Aries. And we also have the moon stepping into Taurus. Take care of yourselves this week. It's going to get abstract, and then it's going to get very dreamy, and you're going to forget to have a snack. Have a snack. Drink some water. Be patient with yourself. And in any and all ways that you can, I highly recommend allowing yourself to dream as big as you possibly can. Are there any limits on God? No. So why would you limit yourself? Blessed be, heathens.